Now let's talk about where you can actually find reliable security information in AWS. This is important not only for real-world work, but also for the AWS Cloud Practitioner exam, because AWS expects you to know where to look for guidance, not just the services themselves. First, we have the AWS Security Center. Think of this as the front door to AWS security information. It's a centralized portal that brings together security best practices, service overviews, and links to deeper documentation. If you're new to AWS security or want a high-level understanding of how AWS approaches security, this is one of the best places to start. Exam tip. If the question asks for a central place for AWS security guidance, Security Center is a strong clue. Next is the AWS Security Blog. This is where AWS security experts publish real-world insights, announcements, new feature explanations, and best practices. You'll often find practical examples here, like how to respond to incidents, how to use new security services, or lessons learned from customer environments. Exam tip. Blogs are informational, not configuration tools. If the question mentions articles, announcements, or expert guidance, think AWS Security Blog. Next is the AWS Documentation, Security and Compliance. The AWS documentation is the official technical reference for every AWS service. Each service has a dedicated security or security and compliance section that explains how the service is secured, customer responsibilities, configuration recommendations, encryption, logging, and access control details. This is where you go when you need exact, service-specific security guidance. Exam tip. If the question asks where to find official configuration or security recommendations for a specific service, the answer is AWS Documentation. AWS Knowledge Center, AWS Repost. The AWS Knowledge Center, accessible through AWS Repost, is focused on answering common questions and troubleshooting issues. It's especially useful when something isn't working as expected, like permissions errors, encryption issues, or access problems, and you want a clear, step-by-step explanation. Exam tip. If the question mentions how-to articles, troubleshooting, or common questions, think AWS Knowledge Center. AWS Security Bulletins. AWS also publishes security bulletins. These are alerts about newly discovered vulnerabilities, affected services, and recommended mitigation steps. Customers can subscribe via RSS feeds to stay informed about security issues as soon as they are identified. Exam tip. Bulletins are about alerts and vulnerabilities, not general guidance. AWS White Papers. Finally, we have AWS White Papers. These are deep, long-form documents that explain security concepts, architectures, and operational strategies. Important examples include the AWS Well-Architected Framework, Security Pillar, the AWS Incident Response Guide, Risk and Compliance White Papers. These documents are especially valuable when designing secure architectures. Exam tip. If the question mentions in-depth guidance, architecture, or best practices frameworks, white papers are the correct direction. To summarize, Security Center, think high-level security guidance. Security Blog, think expert insights and announcements. Documentation, think official service-level security guidance. Knowledge Center, think troubleshooting and FAQs. Security Bulletins, think vulnerability alerts. White Papers, think deep architectural and security best practices. Knowing where to find security information is just as important as knowing what the services do, and AWS tests this concept frequently. Alright, so at this point, go ahead and pause the video. Take a moment to read the question carefully, and try to answer it on your own. Once you've made your choice, resume the video. Next, I'll walk you through a few clues to help you identify the correct answer. A security engineer wants to stay up to date with official AWS best practices, learn about new security features, and read deep dive articles written by AWS experts. So the key here is not troubleshooting, not downloading compliance reports, and not high-level summaries, but ongoing expert content and announcements. Clues to help you choose the correct answer. Here are a few clues to guide your thinking. The resource is content-focused, not a console service. It's continuously updated, not static documentation. The articles are written by AWS security engineers and partners. It's where AWS announces new security features, design patterns, and real-world use cases. Keep those clues in mind as you look at the options. The correct answer is AWS Security Blog. The AWS Security Blog is the right choice because it's specifically designed to share official AWS security best practices, announcements about new security features, in-depth technical articles written by AWS experts. The other options don't fit this goal. AWS Knowledge Center focuses on troubleshooting common issues. AWS Security Center provides high-level guidance and links, not deep articles. AWS Artifact is used to download compliance and audit reports, not educational content. For AWS exam, remember this shortcut. If the question mentions blogs, announcements, or expert-written articles, think AWS Security Blog. That pattern shows up often in exam questions. Tools for identifying and managing security issues in AWS. Now let's talk about the key AWS tools that help you identify, investigate, and manage security issues in your cloud environment. For the CLFC02 exam, it's important to understand what each service does, what kind of problems it detects, and how they work together. AWS Trusted Advisor acts like a security and best practice advisor for your AWS account. It continuously checks your environment against AWS best practices and highlights common security risks, such as security groups that allow unrestricted access, unencrypted Amazon EBS volumes, publicly accessible resources that shouldn't be public. Example: if an S3 bucket is accidentally made public, Trusted Advisor can flag this as a security risk. Exam tip: Trusted Advisor is about recommendations and best practices, not deep threat detection. Amazon Inspector focuses on vulnerability management. It automatically scans EC2 instances, container images in Amazon ECR, Lambda functions. Inspector looks for known software vulnerabilities, CVEs, missing security patches, unintended network exposure. Example: if an EC2 instance is running an outdated Linux package with a known vulnerability, Inspector will report it. Exam tip: think Inspector equals vulnerabilities and patch-related findings. AWS Config is all about configuration tracking and compliance. It continuously records what AWS resources exist, how they are configured, how configurations change over time. AWS Config can evaluate resources against rules, such as all S3 buckets must have encryption enabled. EC2 instances must not have public IPs. Example: if someone disables encryption on an S3 bucket, AWS Config can immediately flag it as non-compliant. Exam tip: config answers. Is this resource configured correctly? AWS CloudTrail provides visibility into API activity. It records who made a request, what action was taken, when it happened, from where, IP address, region. CloudTrail is essential for auditing, forensics, investigating security incidents. Example: if a user deletes an IAM role or modifies a security group, CloudTrail logs exactly who did it. Exam tip: CloudTrail is about account activity and audit trails, not threat detection by itself. Amazon GuardDuty is AWS's intelligent threat detection service. It analyzes CloudTrail logs, VPC flow logs, DNS logs. Using machine learning and threat intelligence, GuardDuty looks for compromised credentials, unusual API calls, communication with known malicious IPs. Example: if an EC2 instance suddenly starts communicating with a known crypto mining server, GuardDuty can generate a high-severity finding. Exam tip: GuardDuty equals continuous threat detection, not configuration checks. AWS Security Hub acts as a central command center for security. It aggregates findings from GuardDuty, Inspector, Config, IAM Access Analyzer, and third-party tools, normalizes and prioritizes security issues, helps assess compliance against standards like CIS or AWS best practices. Example: instead of checking 5 different services, Security Hub gives you a single dashboard showing your overall security posture. Exam tip: Security Hub does not detect threats itself, it collects and organizes findings. Tips: Trusted Advisor, think best practice recommendations. Inspector, think vulnerabilities. Config, think configuration compliance. CloudTrail, think audit logs. GuardDuty, think threat detection. Security Hub, think centralized visibility. Understanding who does what will help you quickly eliminate wrong answers on the AWS exam.
Alright, so at this point, go ahead and pause the video. Take a moment to read the question carefully, and try to answer it on your own. Once you've made your choice, resume the video. Next, I'll walk you through a few clues to help you identify the correct answer.
The scenario describes a security team that wants to automatically detect misconfigurations, like S3 buckets that are publicly accessible, EBS volumes that are not encrypted. So before choosing an answer, here are a few key clues to guide your thinking. The focus is on configuration issues, not active attacks. The service should evaluate resource settings against security or compliance rules. Think about a tool that continuously checks how resources are configured, not one that analyzes logs or network traffic. The correct answer is AWS Trusted Advisor. AWS Trusted Advisor includes security checks that automatically flag common misconfigurations, such as publicly accessible S3 buckets, unencrypted EBS volumes, overly permissive security groups. It's designed to give high-level actionable recommendations to improve security posture quickly, especially useful for identifying common risks. Why the other options are not correct. AWS CloudTrail logs API activity, but does not evaluate configurations. Amazon Inspector scans for software vulnerabilities, not S3 or EBS configuration issues. Amazon GuardDuty detects suspicious or malicious activity, not misconfigurations. Exam tip: if the question mentions misconfigurations, best practices, or security recommendations, Trusted Advisor should immediately come to mind.
Thank you for watching. See you in the next class.